really excited for tonight. Thank you to Jethro and Brittany for being part of this panel, sharing your expertise with us. We get Felicity tonight on our panel, who is our Director of Development. It's actually very fortuitous because she is one of the people who go out about town and pitch our writers. So she knows all about pitching. Lots of good tips and tricks I'm sure she has to share with us. Plus she, and along with Jaren, was the chooser of the winners this evening, the pitchers that we're going to get to see. I also want to take a minute and thank this whole awesome team that is the ISA. Yeah, you guys are great. Thank you to Amy and Shayna for putting together this panel. Thank you to Shayna, Jaren, Jordan, Felicity, Carissa for watching all of these fantastic pitches and picking the very best of the best ones. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun, and we saw a lot of great pitches this time. This was the second time we did the challenge, and the first time blew us away, and the second time was even better, which I think is great news. You guys took some notes, I feel like, from the first pitch panel, and you'll get some more stuff to learn tonight, and we'll just keep making those pitches better and better every time. So thank you for putting yourselves out there, for sharing your stories with us, and for having the courage to do that. And to the ones who get to pitch tonight, we're super excited to see you, so thank you. And Max, thank you, because I know you're going to do a fantastic job moderating. As you always do. And Craig, thanks for leading us.
Hi.
I also want to thank our sponsors tonight, because it is also a third Thursdays. We get lots of fun sponsors to give us prizes. So Chris will probably tell you a little bit about how you're going to get those prizes, but these are who they're coming from. The Capital Fund Screenplay Competition, Changing Face International Film Festival, Page Turner Screenplay Genre Competition, Killer Shorts Horror Short Screenplay Competition, CineQuest, and the Mystic Film Festival. So stand by for more information on that. And actually, two of those, CineQuest and Mystic Film Festival, are giving something to every single person on this call. So that's super exciting. You don't even have to win. You're all winners.
Yay!
I just want to take a minute to acknowledge this time of life, that we're all going through right now. Is really difficult, and we're all experiencing loss in one form or another, and we're going through a second wave and going on another lockdown, and it's difficult, and we will get through it. We are resilient by nature as human beings, and we can take some time to take care of ourselves and mourn and grieve and do what we need to do, and then pull from our strength, our inner selves, and be resilient to get through and push forward. So that is my PSA for you tonight. Without further ado, I'm going to come back later and tell you all the people who are pitching and the finalists and everybody, but I'd like to hear just a little bit from everybody on the team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jaren. I'm the creative executive. I work with Felicity running the development slate, as Molly so eloquently put it, getting out and about town virtually, pitching all your scripts out there. I wanted to say, Molly already kind of touched on it. I got so many emails from people talking about how Shane and I did a video after the last pitch panel with tips and stuff and how it helped. And it was very apparent. I think we always say whenever we do a contest, it was very hard to choose. And that is always true. But all of us that were choosing these pitches, we were all just like, I don't know how to choose. They were all so good. Like it kind of blew us away. And also, ISA is kind of always proud of the diversity we put out there. The diversity on display in these pitches was insane, and we love seeing that. Chris has done such a good job on social, getting the word out, and we love to shine a light on your guys' stories, and so to do that we need to see them, and so we love seeing all those stories come in. So just want to say congrats to all you guys, because it was really something watching all these pitches. So we're in for a special treat tonight.
I am a development consultant for the ISA. I was more full-time with them, but I left to go work on a pilot at ABC, and I missed them too much, and I had to come back. I have loved watching all the events unfold of this amazing organization, and I think this is the perfect iteration for working writers who need to practice their pitch skills, and I cannot wait to see what happens tonight.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shayna Weber. I am the manager of production and research. And since there's no production, it's a lot of research. On the 31st, we're doing an event with the writers, the original writers of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, and the new writer of the new Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. So guys, come back on the 31st for that. And then we're also doing a really cool panel on August 7th called Horror in Color, where we're talking about diversity within the horror genre, but I'm sure it can be expanded in all genres. So come back for those two events, and thanks for being here tonight.
I am the social media and marketing manager, and I know Jaren touched on it and Molly and everybody, but dang, this round was really hard. You guys had some really good pitches and they were so much fun to watch. So thank you so much.
I'm Craig. I'm the founder of the ISA. I just wanted to say, was that a boo or a yay? Was it? Is it that the fact that everybody did these pitches and put so much time and effort into them and how improved they seem to be? I just want to remind everybody now on the ISA site, you can add in your profile a My Video, which is a pitch about you and what you want to accomplish as a writer. So it's open to everybody. You don't need to be an ISA Connect member. Anyone who creates a profile on the ISA site, it's free to have a profile. Another way to get the word out about you and what you got going on. Go ahead and create a pitch. Add it in your profile. You'll see a section to just upload your link from YouTube, and it'll show up on your profile page. So it's a great way to just present yourself to our industry pros. We have about 4,800 searching our site at this time. So, in addition to that, get on to ISA Connect. It's only $10 a month. One of the great advantages of ISA Connect is writing gigs, which industry pros are actively. We had 3 or 4 meetings I was involved with just this week. I can't even imagine how many Felicity and Jaren have had this week. They get overwhelmed with industry pros looking for content. And so there's been a ton of meetings. But make sure that you're submitting to those gigs, because there's a search for animation for 4 to 6-year-olds all the way up to adult. There's comedy. There was a request for comedy, like Will Ferrell comedies, scripts with BIPOC leads, and live action kids pilots. There's just a wide range of content that industry pros are looking for, and we want to connect you to those industry pros. So please make sure you're submitting. And if I could just one last shout out to Jethro and Brittany, thank you so much for doing this. We sincerely appreciate your being here tonight.
Yes.
I'm the Director of Education with the International Screenwriters Association. I also have a little consulting company of my own called The Story Farm. I created the Craft course, which is a self-guided course through the ISA. It's at thecraftcourse.com if you're interested. And then I help run the creative screenwriter productions slate side of things with Felicity, and of course the help of Jaren and Craig and Shayna. Creative screenwriter is a little bit more active in terms of we have an agent and we're actively taking a small amount of projects out. The development slate, which Felicity will be able to tell you a little bit more if need be, has a larger slate of projects, but nonetheless, it's development in general. And we're here to help writers as much as possible. So that's why we have these lovely guests. I'm going to read our bios. I've kind of perfected a quick but thorough read, so hopefully this is entertaining for you to hear me. But of course, we're going to hear more from Brittany, Jethro, and Felicity. But we'll start with Brittany. So Brittany, we can give a little wave, is a Southern California native and lived in New Orleans while she attended Tulane University. She started working in live music and event production in college and started her career in artist representation at CAA in the music department. She spent a few years working with stand-up comedians and joined Sheree Guitar Entertainment in 2017 as a coordinator, and in 2020 was promoted to literary manager. She has been tasked with finding staffing opportunities for SGE's roster of television writers. So welcome, Brittany, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jethro. A former executive and genre film producer, Jethro Rothe-Kushel has partnered with executives at Fox and Paramount and agents at ICM, APA, Gersh, who helped launch the careers such as Christopher Nolan, who did, of course, as I'm sure most of you know, MEMENTO and Inception and a few others, to create Scenario, a production and literary management company working with the next generation of major writers and directors. As the youngest vice president and member of the National Board of Directors elected by the Producers Guild of America, he has represented 8,700 producers of news, documentary, and film. So welcome aboard, Jethro. It's good to see you again. I remember meeting you at another Third Thursdays social event that we had when we were actually able to be alive with other people.
That's right, pre-mask.
Pre-mask time, yeah. Well, welcome. Felicity Wren. I've worked with Felicity for 6 years. I miss running our Wine Wednesdays. We used to have our Wine Wednesday broadcast on Facebook, but ironically, I no longer am in Los Angeles. I will be sometime in the near future, so we're not able to get on camera together and do that. Maybe in the future we will. But Felicity is the Director of Development at the ISA and the Co-VP of Development for Creative Screenwriter Productions. She's an award-winning actor, originally from London, as you'll be able to tell from her lovely voice. She studied all areas of performance, writing, directing, acting technique, and script analysis for her honors degree, then finished her education with a master's in drama from Mount View Academy of Theater Arts. She formed her own production company, Unrestricted View, in 1999, concentrating on theater, new writing, and comedy at her performance venue, the Hen and Chickens Theater in London. Since moving to Los Angeles in 2011, she's continued acting, writing, and producing, winning 3 performance awards in 2016 alone, and producing 9 film projects to date. She now devotes her time to the ISA development slate, writers, as well as contest winners, managing the ISA's contests, and presents ISA projects to producers, managers, and agents all around town. Her focus is on fostering careers for our writers. So thanks for jumping in, Felicity. We'll just kind of start off, because I like to just give a little bit of a broad overview in terms of what all of you are seeing in the industry today. You know, a little bit of an update, any trends, anything that's going on. Obviously, the heart of this event is about pitching, and ultimately it's about writers becoming noticed in some way. So we're going to try to cover all of that. But you know, what are you seeing in terms of what's happening out there right now? You know, like what can writers take advantage of now in terms of getting themselves noticed in any way, shape, or form?
I'm representing some, you know, helping break in some writers in TV. And I think one of the questions that I'm getting a lot now is, should I be reaching out to executives? Maybe you met them in the fall or whatever, but now some executives do have a lot more time and are a little bit more open to the getting to know you phase, because they're just sitting at home reading and developing more, not on set. So I would recommend that, yeah, in fact, it is kind of a good time to get noticed and send an email and check in, how are you today? And then see about networking that way.
I feel like it is a time to be working on yourself and your social media, and you're kind of getting to know you gently, ways of doing your homework. You know, it's time for you to read up on your favorite producers, watch all the films that you really love, study one actor in particular that you're really madly in love with, all their work. You know, set yourself some targets, so that when this is all over, or whatever the new normal is, that you have a whole list of films that you've liked by a certain writer or a producing company that you've really been inspired by their body of work. So that if you ever do get to speak to them, if you do get near them, you'll have this amazing repertoire of things to talk about to them. And I did actually hear someone before on social media say, as long as you kind of take an interest, I mean, Twitter's being amazing for writers, I think, at the moment. If you're not on Twitter, you should get on Twitter as a writer. There are so many great screenwriting kind of platforms and hashtags for you to look out for. But just paying attention if they post something on Variety, or they have a new script out, or a new piece of work is coming out, kind of sending congratulations and being interested gently. I think people do start to notice, and they'll, even if somehow your name does come across their desk in the future, somewhere in there there'll be a memory of you somehow, and they'll just might take a moment just to come and search you out.
Yeah. Jethro, how about the writers who feel like they're kind of spinning their wheels? They're doing well in contests and fellowships. They have a whole repertoire of projects, and they just haven't quite gotten over that hump. And you know, what kind of advice would you give them in terms of outreach? Are cold emails workable? How do you get in touch with people if you actually are then winning contests and doing well, but not quite getting noticed?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of things in answer to your question. So there were 2 questions, and the first one I think is worth also touching on, that the new paradigm here is this box that we're all in. And I think that this has the potential to shift the way that pitches are done, right? So I think we're going to see more and more Zoom calls as pitches. And there are real opportunities there, not the least of which is that you can give 10 pitches a day without drive times in Los Angeles, for instance. You can prepare more, you can pack more into less time, and also learning the modality of this square box and how to use this to your advantage, I think would be wise. And then in answer to your second question about what can emerging writers be doing to help themselves prepare in this sort of time of shutdown. It goes back to, and we can touch on this a bit more later, but what we discovered when we started looking into, we saw a huge variety of careers, literally thousands of writers, and the large majority, 999 out of 1,000 the careers, wouldn't take off, or they'd have a little success, or but things would sort of peter out. But what we were committed to, and we spent a number of days, what became weeks, what became months, sitting around a table, discussing and debating that question: what makes the difference between that 1 in 1,000 writer's career that gets that kind of what we call the lift factor, where the entire industry is helping to pull that writer up? And we came up with what we call 5 pillars for a strategic and sustainable career launch.
Great. Everybody get their
we can come more into that later, but it's a little teaser.
Wait, what? 5 pillars, you say?
Yeah, right. No, that's great. Actually, it is a good little tease for a little bit later. We can dive into those 5 pillars, because Brittany, what do you do with your writers to get them prepared for these Zoom meetings and obviously the actual creative part, but just getting them out and about and meeting people? Do you have a plan for them, and is it kind of across the board the same, or is it just different and relative?
With any one pitching is going to be a different preparation process, because some writers are writer performers who you don't really have to do anything. You're like, oh, great, you're in front of a camera or you're in the room, you're going to be awesome and entertaining. And then in the, today for a pitch Zoom, we have been exploring the modality, like Jethro said, of using what can we use and what do we have at our disposal. I mean, we can have, our assistant running background video and sound and making it an audio visual presentation, where in the past that would have been, like you said, coordinating with someone else's assistant, getting cords and making sure that the floppy disk doesn't work when you get there. But yeah, it's definitely elevated a lot of our pitches, and we do a lot of practice to make sure that there's not going to be any issues when we get in the room.
I think that's key. Felicity and I are finding that out with the project that we're working on right now with one of our writers, is that you really have to nail that pitch. You just have to understand it and feel it. But to go to you, Felicity, you have the development slate writers create a little bit of a map, right, to get them prepared. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, because it has a lot to do with at least the beginnings of an outreach process.
I guess it kind of goes back to what I was saying about being prepared. There's nothing more flattering than someone who's watched your work or knows about you or has bothered to do a bit of investigation into you. So I have this thing that I created called the Producers and Actors Map. And it's a very simple Excel spreadsheet, but you take your project and you think about what it means and who the market is for, and you think of other projects that are like it. So if it's a TV show, think of other TV shows. If it's a feature, other features. And then you go to that feature on IMDb Pro or whatever kind of other search tool that you have, and you look at who produced it, and you make a note of who produced it. And then you kind of go down a bit of a wormhole, like a rabbit hole. I mean, it's boring, but you just have to do it. It's 45 minutes, like maybe twice a week, where you then go, okay, so what else did they produce? And who was in that? And who were they partnering with? And where did they sell that? Was it a streaming show? Was it a theatrical release? Or was it, and you just start to build a picture, and it becomes like a spider's web of delicious connections and contacts that will become people that later on you can try and get in contact with. And you kind of build out your argument as to why at least they can look at your log line or hear your 90-second pitch, especially in this time where you can literally, just like you say, just pop up. You don't have to go and meet you for coffee. You can have 15 minutes in someone's front room, and you can kind of have your little moment with them, and it seems like people are taking a chance. I mean, the stuff that happened with the writers' strike and the WGA kind of has set writers free in a different way. They're having to be more inventive and imaginative about how they can be found and how they can help and find each other. And so I think anything you can do so that when you're in a room or you meet someone, you can say like, well, I think it's just like this. It's really like this film, and these producers worked on it. And I think if they got to hear from me, and you never know who knows who, it's all a little connected, even like through friendships or 1 degree or 6 degrees of separation. But to take some confidence back. I mean, I'm always trying to say to my writers, you know, without you, there is nothing. You start the process. You are the beginning. You're so important. And even though you're not treated like you are, you are. Without you, there aren't any films. There aren't any jobs for us. There aren't anything. So know your worth. And being able to talk intelligently about your project and who it be worth, I think allows you to kind of feel a bit more buoyed and a bit more in control. Because you should never negate how important you are. Your voice, your story is the most important thing.
I'm the director of education with the ISA, and of course I'm going to push education, but it's not just the craft that you have to teach yourself. Everything Felicity's talking about is research. You have to know your lane, but then all of the other lanes that are next to you. You have to know the names of people. I mean, some of the smartest people I've met in the industry, they just have this recall, and they just, oh yeah, that person did that person did that. But it's not just like a memory thing, it's also a feel. They just have a recall of that movie made me feel this way, and that person made that. And so, like you said, is this whole spider web, all these different companies and people that were a part of it, and you start to see how small this town really is. And so you have to be making yourself come across as intelligent as possible, especially about your own material, but then knowing that you have a place in the industry. Speaking of the industry, so Jethro, before we get to those 5 pillars, because I think everybody's like still pen poised, what are we, obviously this year especially, so much has changed, right? I mean, the whole pandemic situation in Hollywood has completely changed everything. Are there still, and we've talked about this before a little bit, but in terms of the trends for what companies are looking for, is there a slide more toward TV? Is there, what type of TV are we seeing buyers looking for more often? And Brittany, you can probably speak to this too. What is the industry trending for? And it's not because we want the writers to be writing toward the trend. It's just so that everyone has an understanding. Here's where the industry is right now.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the TV of the past is this confusing array of new media, Netflix, Amazon's, Hulu's, and all these other crazy platforms that are coming in every day. Disney, I mean, it's just overwhelming, I think, to try to figure it all out. And so I guess the short answer in terms of advice would be not to try to figure it all out, but to really focus on telling your story and the best version of your story. What format does that want to take? But to your point, yes, I mean, it is that everyone is looking at small screens. I don't even know that big screens will be around at some point. I mean, there's a lot of outdoor drive-in theaters are on the comeback, but yeah, shorter format.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
Brittany, you want to speak to that? Like, how are you prepping your writers, and what kind of material are you looking for? Or are you just not even worried about it?
Well, personally, I agree with Jethro. Like, write your story. You're a creative. Like, an artist creates art, and that's the best art that you're gonna create is your own story. But business-wise, there's people want animation. People want some blue skies. People want some escapism. Back to Felicity's note on studying trends and studying people's output, just studying the trend of being in a depression and what what kind of art were we putting out after, you know, the Great Depression, after 2008? So that's kind of where you can think of us going now.
Yeah. Felicity, what have you been seeing in terms of the meetings that you've been taking? Is it pretty across the board? Because you are still talking to some big buyers and not just TV land stuff, not the network necessarily, but you know, it's both features and TV that you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those weird kind of contradictory things where you don't want to write to the market, but at the same time, if you do write something that's COVID friendly, that's probably a good idea, you know? So it's kind of contained and it's maybe it happens in a house and there are less characters than normal, and you definitely go to Disneyland in the script, you know? Try and really think about a story and where it's set, and be cognizant of the market now and the future. I really don't think anyone is gonna want the breakdown, the kind of like the COVID story though, you know, about being locked in with your flatmate, or because we're living it. We don't want to see it.
That's a good point.
So,
escapism.
Yeah, escapism. There is a massive push on the animation front. So if you've ever been thinking, oh my goodness, I have this incredible story that would be too expensive to be practical or, you know, ridiculous, this is the time to write it out. And I think with animation, it is different too, in the fact that you don't necessarily have to have a script, but you do have to have a pitch. And in working in, Max and I are working with a writer right now on his animated pitch, and he is wonderful and I love him. And he does have a script, but in working out the pitch, we realized that he had to change some of the script, and some of the ideas that he thought he had down were not going to work. So I think actually this practice of pitching, this really understanding and getting into the story, into the nuts and bolts of the story you're telling and why you want to tell it, because that is also very important when you're pitching it. Why should someone care? You sometimes don't even know that. I think writing happens almost subconsciously so much of the time. There's so much magic that is brought out by directors or actors or other people that kind of go to the writer, oh, you meant that, didn't you? And you always have to go, yes, of course I meant that. That clever thing that now has just come to light, but obviously subconsciously was in there. But really allowing time in the pitch and the practice of organizing your ideas and making sure that you are telling the story that you want to tell, and that you know it forwards, backwards, inside, out, outside, you know, up, down, up and in, all the other roundabout.
I think it's dead on, because there's what pitching forces you to do as a writer is to consider the audience's experience, because you have an audience. And how often as a writer do you actually have an audience other than just like sending it electronically somewhere and then that person might read it within 6 weeks? With a pitch, you've got somebody in front of you and that person's going to react hopefully positively. And then if they have questions, those questions are key, because that means either the pitch doesn't have that clear, or what we're finding out, Felicity and I, that the writer actually hadn't quite figured out some of the answers to those questions. So it's absolutely necessary to go through all of this. We'll go down to Jethro here in terms of, because we're going to ease our way into the pitch process here, because obviously there's going to be a lot of questions and stuff focused there. But what kind, I'm throwing this at you, Jethro, I didn't put this in the list of questions, it's just popping in my head.
Go for it.
What kind of discovery process have you noticed in any kind of pitch? Like, meaning really great experience that you had and that you didn't expect it to work, or you had a horrible experience or heard a terrible pitch and you had thoughts of, boy, it could have been better had they done this. And this is a way to ease into the advice portion.
Interesting. It's a good question. And where I thought you were going with the question, which is also valid, is there a discovery process in the room while you're pitching?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that the best kinds of pitches, they aren't pre-rehearsed. They come out through authentic dialogue between two people, where there's a core of a concept that the writer brings to the room, but there's some kind of a collaboration in the room. And when you see it at work, you feel it. You know, sometimes for me, I get little goosebumps, but people can sense it when there's true, authentic communication and dialogue, and the result is a vision for a project that maybe hadn't yet been seen or discovered by either party.
Or they discover it there with the writer because the writer was intending for it, and then the person listening gets it, and you're like, yes, and you can, yeah, it's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. So Brittany, I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that you're not telling your writers to just memorize the pitch, but at the same time, they do have to know it inside and out, like you're saying, Felicity. So how do you allow the writers or help the writers to get to that place to make it conversational, but you do still have to hit beats of some? Do they have a list? Are there what's written down in front of them? You know,
we suggest a script. That what the writer makes a script for the pitch is up to them. I mean, is that bullet points? Is that full words and paragraphs? I mean, usually we're all adults, like we can figure out our own work method. And then we'll work on it with them from there. And then we have a format, not a format, but kind of some things that we like to see in pitches, especially for television. And we say, keep it to 15, 20 minutes. And then we run it and we time it and we run it a couple more times. And you want them to be off book, but now that we're in a Zoom setting, you can have all your notes out in front of you. So that's been beneficial for people.
And your lucky gonk, you know, you got your lucky gonk, your little lucky mascot, just like on the other side. I mean, I feel like that's it, is you really have to treat the person like they're your best friend. So if you have a lucky gonk is probably a very British thing.
I don't know what gonk is.
I was like, okay, yeah.
I'm learning something.
I'm really like, I'm thinking I'm losing these people, and it's because gonk is not an American thing. It's amazing how we speak the same language. Anyway, I feel like that idea that you're speaking to your best friend and that you're just kind of chatting through a story with them that you're really excited about, but that you know inside out, and if they stopped and asked you something, you'd be like, oh my God, what a great idea, again, let's just maybe think about this. And then so you have that feeling that you want to kind of make them feel like some of the things were their idea, like, oh my God, yeah, that's really great. And then you kind of, so it does feel, as Jethro was saying, this kind of spitballing and meeting of minds, because you are actually, I mean, you're pitching the project, but actually it's a sales job for you. I believe everything is sales. I mean, from dating to, I don't know, something else, shopping. So everything is sales. I mean, you literally, you have to plug yourself, you have to make someone like you have to kind of be the person that they want to hang around with for 2 years. If it's SpongeBob SquarePants, 1,000,000 years, you know, I mean, so it's, you have to know that in this kind of weird marriage bed of writing together and working together and producing something, and when things get tough, that you are going to have each other's back and that you still get each other. I think having a sense of humor, I try and really, especially since COVID, I mean, I think my name is Felicity, you know, my name means happy. I was always going to have to try and live up to it in some way or another, but especially during COVID, I think trying to tread lightly with your life and with the things that you're doing in it, just because it's already easy to kind of like go into the future space of like, so 28 million unemployed, you know, think every now and again I'll go down that hole. So I just try and tread lightly in the meantime and just think, you know, like, this is a privilege to tell your story, to have these ideas in your head and to get them out, and then to have someone that's sat there listening to you tell your story and listen to your ideas. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be creative. It's amazing to be an artist. It's so exciting to have an idea in your head, and when you're working something out and a new little bit of dialogue pops in or another little plot point, and you're suddenly like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to go write that down. And you know, you're in the shower. It's always the shower, isn't it? Where you're like, oh, I never have a pen, but you're in the shower going, in a minute, I just have to keep repeating it till I get out and then write it down. You know, it's just trying to find joy in this is the most important thing, because there are no's, it is hard. You're not going to be for everyone, you're not everyone's cup of tea, but you are someone's. And I think if you do it for the love of it and the joy, then you've already won. Whether someone else reads it, whether they get you, whether they don't, doesn't matter, because you did it for you, and you deserve it. You deserve this platform. You deserve to tell your story. You are interesting. You are enough. Sorry.
And you can see that from, and you can see that from the best storytellers, that they just immediately have an energy to them, and it's not fake. They really do enjoy what they're doing in the process. And I know it seems kind of obvious to tell you all, the writers out there, that you should enjoy what you're doing, but it's a good reminder to be like, well, hold on a second, this, what's really riding on this in terms of what's important to me? And what's important to me is just to have fun and actually enjoy my life, because the true likelihood of you selling multiple pieces of material is pretty low. So you might as well enjoy it, have fun, and just get out there and create some stuff, and that's not me being negative, it's just the reality of it all. But you can change that by finding that energy and really getting up there. But all right, so I'm wondering, Jethro, do we want to go into the 5 pillars now? I want to ease into the pitches situation, and I kind of want to start with the log lines, because what Brittany mentioned about their pitches, 15 to 20 minutes that you have the writers go through. They have a decent chunk of time. Tonight, we've got 90 seconds to 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, if we allow you to go a little long. That's not really going to happen in real life. You're going to have more time than that. But what's key about getting a 90-second pitch down is so that you get that hook of the idea out. How good am I in my approach and ability to do that? But also, it's kind of a test of the material. Does the material have this hook that's easy to see and understand? All the other outside layers, that can come out later, but it's just the core of the story. So that kind of gets me segued into a log line, because that is usually that first approach to a pitch. It's a written version. You don't necessarily get an immediate Zoom, call. We can't just call somebody on Zoom, get their home line, So let's go there. So Jethro, in terms of log lines, it is pretty basic, but it's important. What needs to be in there? I know it's an open-ended question, but we'll start, how about from a feature side of things, because TV is a little bit different. What are you hoping to see when you're looking at a log line?
So we work with our writers on what we call premises. So a premise is a character with a goal, and opposition, and then an unexpected opposition. And those all of those 4 elements should not be random. They should inform each other. And ideally, a writer helps to develop an archive of at least a couple hundred of these. And these are just one sentence that way they can pull out of their pocket in any given meeting a premise that's based on in a general meeting, that particular project that they're in the room to pitch may not sell, but that's helpful to have a diversity and a breadth of premises that have been developed over the course of a career.
Okay, beautiful. Brittany, same question.
I can't say it any better than that. I mean, even for TV, you want to, I guess for TV, you think a bit more on the longevity side. I mean, this person's not going to overcome just one obstacle. Who are we going to be with for 3 to 5 seasons?
When I'm working with my consulting writers, and Felicity knows this, but I have them, for TV, work on 3 separate log lines to be able to see the full scope. You've got a pilot log line, the season log line, first season, and then the series log line. Series log line is much more of just an overall hook of the idea. The pilot specific to what we're seeing in that episode. The first season's kind of like almost reading like a feature film log line, because it's a much longer portion there. So you have more work to do from the TV side. But Felicity, you read log lines constantly, and we both do. So does Jaren and Shayna, the whole ISA team. So can you put it into words, like when a log line clicks for you, like why? How does that come about?
I want to know who it is, what they're going to do, and how I should feel about it.
Okay, so I think that I love that, because it's a good point in terms of how I should feel about it, because if you're writing a comedy, the word choice in a comedic log line needs to be there. It has to be funny. There has to be a situational situation, but also presented with goofy words, because you have to allow somebody to go, oh, wow, that's funny. That could be a really funny situation. If it's scary and dark or really emotional or dramatic, yeah, the word choice is important. Any other
Gonk,
comments?
by the way,
yeah.
Gonk, just for word choice, Gonk has really picked up in the comments here. I think that's a big takeaway.
For sure.
I actually haven't been paying attention to the comments. That's funny.
Oh,
They're happy because they eat gonk.
Like a picture of a gonk and show everyone. You know, if I could share my screen and find, it's like a little troll thing with like spiky hair. Anyway,
so it's, oh, I see. It's like the Trolls movie. Yeah, I don't know.
So funny. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail with the gonk, but anyway, you know what I mean. I guess maybe there's something to be said in that though. If you have something that is memorable, that's a good thing, so that people remember you and they remember that pitch and they remember that that little trigger. You know, so you'll always come back. And I say about these 90-second pitches is it's kind of like your elevator pitch. Not that we ever go in elevators ever again, because I read this terrible COVID thing about how this one person, they linked it back to the elevator in this building, and basically, you know, it went crazy. So we don't go in elevators, but consider this your elevator pitch.
Use the stairs.
Yeah. No one's doing any exercise. I don't know if anyone else is doing any exercise. It's really, really hard to kind of like, so use the stairs and stay away from lift buttons.
Well, let's segue then into overall pitching. So I apologize. I'm looking at my notes here. I just want to make sure we get this right. So, I mean, the general question is, how do you approach a pitch? I mean, that's so open-ended, and it can be, of course, relative to the project. But let's say we'll put kind of a situation around it. So let's say the writer has a project that has, we'll put Brittany in the spotlight for a second. So you have a script, you love it, you've met with the writer a little bit, and you like that person, you want to bring them on. What do you then do? What's the process there? Because it is then looking at, okay, how do I pitch this writer to the town? So maybe from a literary manager's point of view, how do I pitch my writer, and what am I looking to do structurally, emails, calls, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, in the TV, and especially in representation game, we're more than just the one project. We want to see if this person is viable for the future. Is this writing thing, this sample, you know, can we use this for staffing? And how are they personable? Can we pitch with them? Can we send them out on generals? Do they want to be sitting in a writer's room? Is someone going to want to sit in a writer's room with them for 6 hours a day, or a Zoom call? So there's those things for us. But pitching wise, same thing with developing your elevator pitch is, what is special about this person? And can I deliver that in a 90-second pitch on the phone? Or on a Zoom room, and do I think that the people that I know in the industry will be intrigued by this person and their stories?
Great. Jethro, kind of the same question. I suppose it's a little different in terms of, you know, your approach, but when you've got a project, first things first, you know, what are you thinking about? What are you working with the writer on in terms of the material? Is it just log lines, or is it a full, you know, breakdown? How are you working that?
Oh, it all depends on what stage the project is in and where we are with things. Sometimes a writer will come into a rewrite, as you know, and so then it's reworking someone's pre-existing material. But as far as your prior question too, from the management side, I think it's really important, the writer's brand. So what is that writer's creative voice or unique component, and how does that brand, how is that repeatable within the industry? How do people know when to tell their friend to pick up the phone to call that writer? I think that's probably really important to get that writer in the room. And then once they're in the room, if it's if we're talking about pitching, are we on to pitching yet, or?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's do it. That's why we're here. Yeah,
right?
Maybe it's my fault. I spent too long about what's going on in town. Go for it.
I'm just taken back to Mark Gordon, one of the prior presidents of the Producers Guild, speaks to this concept of concentric circles. So now you ask, well, what is a concentric circle?
What is a concentric circle?
So the idea is that you're supposed to create a core and a core idea and build that and have the listeners enthusiasm and interest pull that out. So that's the concept.
Stemming from the core. So that's a big idea, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it too, because every writer then needs to understand what is essentially at the core of my project. Is it the character? If it is, then your movie's probably going to be named after the character. If, Shrek, he's the core of it. But if it isn't about the character, then it's a huge hook. Or, so I don't know, I guess I want to try to come up with examples so that writers can get a little bit further, like, okay, what's my core? How do I find my core? What would be, Felicity? Like, what should a writer be thinking about in terms of what's the core of my story here? Is it theme? Is it this? Is it that?
Well, I think that it's so individual to the person. I mean, I just want to touch quickly on brand. Jethro's that way to me. It's not that you have to be a horror writer or a romantic writer or anything like that anymore. On the ISA profiles for our development slate, we always say, write your profile as a writer you want to be. So, the successful TV writer or writes incredibly scary horror movies, whatever is your passion, write it as if you're doing it and it's already happening. And then the second thing about the brand is that it's your voice inside it, your unique voice, your style, the fact that you might like really witty, sparky dialogue, or you love to puzzles that unwrap, and that, the things that really inspire you and excite you as a person, I think need to be there as your brand. That is you. That is your brand. The things that, it's the ideas that replay in your head. It's the trauma that you suffered as a child that you're still trying to figure out. It's a relationship that nearly killed you, but you feel better for. It's all those things that then mean that you write these characters as you try. Because try and hide yourself when you're a writer. You will not. You are available. You are, without even trying. You are completely showing us your knickers. That's another British word. Because you show us your heart and soul when you write. You can't help it, and nor should you try and stop that. Because your story and your heart and soul is what makes it interesting. That's what makes it compelling. So the core, I would say, is the most compelling thing about why you wanted to write it. And whatever that is that made you think, I need to get this out of me. I need to write these stories down. I need to express myself in this way. And whether it's the journey of the character or the theme of the story that you're telling, or a change you want to happen in society from people watching it, there must be a motivator. And to really get to the heart of what that motivating point is, I think there is your core.
Yeah, and there's a lot, like when I was coming up through my screenwriting education years, there was a term called conceit. It's the most unique element of your project. And if it is theme, then great. How have we not seen that theme before? But then how are we presenting the theme? Or it's a situation we haven't seen before. So I basically, Jethro, I'm loving the idea of core. I want to make sure everybody listening has a full understanding of what that means, because I don't think writers think about that enough. What is the most unique element? Because we pitch around that unique element in the core of it so often. We tend to not get to it. That's what we've learned from our agent when we're trying to, Felicity and I, in terms of building this pitch with our writer. And every time we have a practice pitch with our agent, she's like, no, you're there, but not there, so it's tough, man, trying to figure out what that core is.
Yeah, and some also refer to it as a hook. I mean, it's a slightly different concept, but the idea is that, what can you say in a sentence that captures someone's curiosity? And that way their curiosity is pulling rather than pushing, because we find a lot of emerging writers feel like, understandably, they've been at it so long and they're trying to get themselves out there. Those few writers where the industry is trying to pull ideas from them because they're so curious about the kinds of things that they're doing stand out. That's what I'm
Right.
trying to say.
Right. All right. So, Molly, if you can hear me, where are we? We've got about 4 minutes to the hour. And we
Yeah.
want to get to some of these
There's a
questions.
couple questions we can do in the Q&A.
Great. Let's
yeah.
do that. I haven't had a chance to look at them. Let me just pull them up here. I'm just going to go through randomly, everybody, so please don't feel like, hey, why'd you ask that person? I haven't even looked at them. Audrey E. asks, if while you're pitching, you can feel that you're not winning over the room, what should you do? Is there a way to turn things around? Great question. And anybody, what do you think?
Break things up, try something different, interrupt people. People are getting bored. Make sure that they're with you, I think, is most important. It's probably more important that the person feels in the room that you're pitching to feels like you're there with them and that they're present in the room. More important than that you pitch anything, that you have a real engagement, because people can check out real quick, especially if they've been through a whole day worth of pitch. So forget about yourself to some extent and really focus on the person that you're there to pitch to and enter their world. And if you're not entering their world, try something else.
Yeah. Felicity, Brittany, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I was going to say, ask a question. I don't know. I think it's exactly right. Just like, get it off you. Make them say something, because I think that's the thing is you can feel like, if you feel like the deer in the headlights, and then you start to shrink inside yourself, and then you're second guessing what you're going to say next, and you get two in your head. So I just ask a question and just kind of say, or be human, say, you know what, I feel like I'm losing you. What can I do to get you back? Be honest. I mean, how refreshing to have someone tell you actually what's really going on. This idea that we can lie to anyone, I always think is a crazy thing, because we're so sensitive to each other. That you can tell when someone's lying. You just choose to believe them if you want to, but you can feel it. There's an energy, there's a sense of something. So yeah, if you're making an idiot, well, I mean, I'm quite good at being an idiot. But I mean, I think just be authentically you. So if it feels like you're losing it, it's gonna say, well, I mean, I think as well, you're saying, I'm not doing very well here, and I feel like I'm losing you. What can I do? I would be honestly that open to, would be my kind of my way out of it.
Yeah. Brittany, do you want to speak to that?
I agree with everything Felicity said. I mean, yeah, if you can save it and just have an honest conversation and make a friend with that executive, you've kind of won anyway. And they'll maybe open the door for you to come back or something else, get to know what they actually want.
Yeah, I think the key word there is conversation, because if you are going into a performative pitch, it is easy to lose people, because then suddenly their eyes start to glaze over because they're just getting hit with information. But if it's a little bit more bit by bit conversational, they're included, Okay, let's see. Chris McConnell asks, at what stage should a writer be pitching? During an idea or after a finished script? Again, it's relative to the stage of the project, I guess, and where they are.
One could say always be pitching to some extent. I mean, at least to friends and people around you who are willing to hear it, because it helps to practice on real people. So, ideally pitch your premises when you're coming up with them, pitch them in the room to real people as you're developing them. And then as they become scripts, sometimes a pitch will recenter you on that North Star, and you'll actually figure out the core of your project based on failed attempts to pitch it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think this idea of not getting stuck at only having one idea as well, so that you feel brave, that you can just have some other ideas and just let things kind of bubble up. And I think it's right, try it out on people. Don't get stuck with one idea about it. If it doesn't seem to be working each time you try it, try something again completely different. And I would say, I don't know, be vulnerable, and if, ask for help. So if someone says like, well, you pitch to them and they're like, oh, no, what didn't I get? What did I get wrong? Or what didn't you get? Or, have you got any advice? I think being vulnerable, showing that you are willing to learn from someone else and that you think that their idea is valuable, I think is actually can start a good conversation, even if it is like a mentor and it's someone you would love to work with, and just say, like, I'm really having trouble. You've got 10 minutes, we could just kind of talk through and I'll, ask for help.
Yeah.
I think what Jethro said, that you are always pitching, you'll learn about your specific idea, whether or not you are even able to pitch it. Like maybe you just aren't able to get the words to go across and it needs to be on the page, and you need to have that dialogue and a whole pilot written out for people to get like, oh, I get it. This is where it is. Because hopefully you're coming up with new and unique ideas for television shows all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Never seen it before.
I don't know how many nights in my younger days when we were able to go to bars where I was talking about my project all the time. And then as I'm going home that night, I'm like, God, that sounds like it's a horrible idea. That was terrible. Like, why? But you have to do that. You have to get it out and allow people to hear the idea. And so it's a way to test it, but then it's also kind of managing your expectations. You have to make sure you know your story before you're actually really pitching it to anybody, but you do have to practice it every now and then. So it's a little bit of both to answer that question.
Yeah, I used to stand-up club, and quite often the comedians would come and they'd pretty much do their act for me before they went on. It's just like trying it out. How's that? Was that funny? Okay, good. And then they go and do to the big audience. So everyone does it.
Yeah, you have to. Let's see here. Randomly, if you're pitching animation, should you present visuals like storyboards and characters, or should it just be verbal? Brittany, well, let's go to you there.
I mean, that's a budget issue, I think, right? I mean, unless you can bring up old, like the same thing you would do for a live action if you were putting in like some casting suggestions, putting in some visuals. But yeah, that definitely seems like a budget issue to me. Getting what is it called, a pencil test done is pretty expensive, and that's just sketches.
Yeah, I think we do. Everyone loves a picture and no one likes to read anything. So there is definitely if you are putting together a lookbook or some pitch materials or for your project, it is definitely worth finding someone who's really good at it to do it for you. Don't do it on Word, for example. Actually have someone who can create some magic. And then I think you really want to, in the lookbook or the pitch bible or the pitch pages, however you're kind of putting them together, you really need the tone of your story to be in the Bible as well, so that it is, if it's a jokey, fun kind of character piece, that it's jokey and fun and character filled on the page. You can't say it's this amazing comedy where everyone has a great time. Blah, 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 what I mean? Then this pitch book is, it's the opposite. So you just have to make it feel like it's all cohesive. It's one, but only if it's good. Don't draw it on some pencil and go like, these are my sketches, because honestly, everyone will then think you're not a professional and you don't want to do that. So
you can ruin your idea if you have poorly drawn artwork. Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jethro, we're going to go with one more question, and then we're going to get these pitches underway. I think this is a good question. We'll start with Jethro, but I think everybody can answer this. Oh, I just lost it. Where did it go? It was about, oh gosh, I can't quote the person that was asking. It was about if you have no contacts, let's say there's a writer coming in, they have zero contacts in the industry. How do you even begin to approach the process of trying to get in touch with people? Do you have to get yourself noticed first? What can a writer do? And there are a lot of them out there that have no connection other than these Zoom events to the industry at large.
Yeah, so the good news, if you are one of those writers, the good news is that lack of exposure can actually benefit you, because the industry is so deep in this idea about talent being something that you either have or you don't have. The industry is going to judge folks really quickly. So to the extent that you don't have contacts, use that as an asset to double down on preparation, so that when, I mean, inevitably you will be met if you're living here in Los Angeles. If you're outside of Los Angeles, there are other ways to be met. I mean, this forum tonight it seems like a perfect way to connect with people who may be outside of Los Angeles, for instance. But so work on yourself and work on those 5 pillars. I'll just plug them real fast right now, because that is the thing that I would say. I'd have to say, work on your portfolio pieces. Having a number of well-polished portfolio pieces, working on your premises. So like we talked about earlier, at least a couple hundred viable, marketable, pitchable premises. Working on the in-the-room skills, which includes everything from your own story that's set up as an origin story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a payoff, so that when people do meet you, they understand immediately who you are and why they want to work with you, and at its core, what your voice or your brand is. And then the 4th is team. So once those first 3 are developed, you want to have your eyes on the 5th, which is your brand or your creative voice that we talked about earlier, because that should inform everything. And you want to be crystal clear about who it is that you are from an industry standpoint, like what it is that you're here to bring. And then that 4th pillar is your team building. And that's where, if you meet a key member of your team, an agent, a manager, an entertainment attorney, those, and I would put that last, because you want to have those team members, hopefully once you've built up those other 4 pillars, because those team members can help introduce you to town. We all have the same relationships. So, at some point, like we were saying earlier, the town is super small. So if you've done that kind of preparation, no one's going to want to hide you. They're going to want to help lift you up, and you'll start to experience that lift factor that the industry is good at doing for very few people. Shonda Rhimes, Mindy Kaling, who I went to school with. I mean, these are people whose careers have been catapulted because they have so much of that special sauce. And they had all of those things, whether it was someone told them to do it, or they had their own inspiration and insight or mentorship. Those elements were in place with those careers.
Great.
Everyone loves special sauce. It's the most important ingredient. You need your own special sauce. So for me, I think it's you need to build up your writer's CV. So, and this is kind of the same kind of thing. I'm just going to put it in slightly different words, so that you have your premises and your log lines and your ideas, and you have that. So your writer's CV then is enter contests, write things, get articles published, write web series, write short films, write short stories. Get your voice out in as many platforms as you can, so you can start to see that you have these articles published, you have a little short film that you've done, you've written, and you've written for an actors group. Get yourself a writers group, find that online through Facebook. There are so many screenwriting groups and associations on Facebook alone, let alone if you then did a deep dive search for others writers groups in your area. Now it's online, you can write together online. There's that whole thing called Shut Up and Write or something, where you literally do as a group. You have to all agree to go somewhere for an hour. It used to be you went to a cafe and you had to write for an hour and then you would talk afterwards. But now I guess you're going to do it in your home, but still shut up and write. There are contests. If you enter contests and you go for fellowships and you try and find your way in to a bigger, someone that's doing a diversity workshop, or, try. I mean, I'm not saying give yourself a budget so you're not going to go crazy and spend all your money on something, but you will have to invest in yourself. And some of that is about sometimes getting a coach or someone doing a lookbook for you, or entering a contest. Make sure that you list all the contests, do some research. You can do it on the ISA site. We built this community for you so that you would know the places that are not going to rip you off. So you can read about all the contests, you can look at the past winners, see if something you have fits in their kind of criteria. I wouldn't start with a nickel if you're a brand new writer, for example. you know, make sure that your screenplay or the things you write about are something that they tend to award things to. You know, if it's a horror contest, write a horror movie, but please not a slasher one where the ladies' tops fall open. We're so over those. You know, but just start to build, and then you'll have the CV. And the reason for the ISA is that we have this profile, so we can literally, you can send your link for your ISA profile to anyone. It'll have all your scripts on there. It can have any articles. It can have your little pitch that Craig was telling you about, where you just talk about you and your story and why you write. And then you have everything in one place. You basically
success stories.
Sorry?
Success stories on your profile. That's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, articles and advice, so you can keep learning, feel connected. Here's someone else's story. Find someone that inspires you, that kind of didn't start working. I don't know, if you're in your 40s and they didn't get their first writing job until they were 45, and you're like, okay, I've got 4 years, you know, whatever it is, you know, to really think, well, how did they do it? How did they put their life together and their dream? And then do your dream. And yes, it's hard work and it's annoying, and sometimes you'll feel shut down and you'll be cross that other people have more success than you. Do not compare yourself to anyone else. This is not you're not living their life. You're not on their journey. Only do you. But do it. Be an artist. Create something. We need you. We need you to tell the stories, your story, so that we remember this time, because it's only through story that we document social history. And this will be our reminder of 2020, the greatest year of all time.
Wow.
In the before time, I would say that I was an example of someone who made networking a lifestyle. Any job in Hollywood, any job that I probably know of, is you're going to be networking with people that you work with. And Jethro and Felicity both talked about this, about where you can do it and how to do it, but do your work for writing, like get all of your art ready. And then you're going to have to reach out to 100 people to maybe have 2 coffees. And you're going to have to do that every year until, you know, it just becomes a habit. Always talking with people, and also the first 5 coffees you have, you're going to probably stumble over all your words and maybe not make the best impression, but maybe make a friend. And by the time you get to your 10th coffee meeting, you're going to be a pro at it. And then also, part of making it a lifestyle is reading the trades, getting to know like what's going on, what companies are hot right now, what companies are staffing up. Like they'll say, oh, they hired 5 new executives. And it's like, oh, well, that's somewhere maybe that there's some hungry young executives there, or it's an agency or a management company. There's hungry young executives who want to help break you. So that's my advice.
It's great. It's great. Well, I think now moving into the pitch portion, we're going to have that much more advice on a specific level. And so everyone who is not getting reviews for their pitches, obviously, you know, pay attention, because the notes that the panelists are going to be giving the people who are pitching is invariably going to be helping your own pitch.